Well, welcome to episode 2 of the Twin Reads podcast. I'm David Gonzalez, and I'm joined by my twin brother, Daniel. This is an NFL podcast where we view the same game from two different perspectives. But Daniel, it's been a while since we put out an episode. How are you?
I'm doing good. Things have been busy because of the World Cup and then obviously camps. But as you know, got to represent here on the pod. And so Mexico won last night to move on. First time they've moved on past this first stage in 40 years.
Of the knockout rounds. Yeah, man.
Knockout
That's
rounds.
crazy.
So super exciting. I've been super into the World Cup. I'm not usually a big soccer guy or football guy. But being able to follow a couple teams, like obviously Mexico, that's where we're from. My wife is Colombian, so obviously following Colombia, and then also the U.S. So really nice being a Mexican American who married a Colombian and then following those teams has been really fun. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, dude, I've been keeping track of it as well, watching as many games as I possibly can, given with the summer schedule, but I was really impressed with Mexico yesterday. I said this to people that we're talking to. If Mexico can be aggressive from the jump, like it's game over. And that's exactly what happened. Mexico was aggressive. Ecuador just couldn't find that, and they couldn't find an answer to anything that Mexico did. They had a couple of shots, in there, but
Great saves.
other than that, like that first 30 minutes of the game, really that first half was just amazing. That second goal is probably my favorite one that I've seen so far. Just the passing and the teamwork and
Yeah.
I mean everything. It was great. So yeah, I've been interested. We're watching the World Cup tomorrow. Today, US playing today at 6:30. So that's going to be a great game against Bosnia. But that's not what we're here to talk about. That's a different football. A different football. We're talking about the NFL today. And today we're talking about a topic that I feel like is a topic that gets talked about every single year throughout the season. It really never really goes away. And that's evaluating the quarterback position. To me, I love talking about this topic, but it's a frustrating topic because no one really agrees about what the criteria is.
Right.
And I feel like we've alluded to these things before, talking about biases that are had with specific players, with specific criteria such as ring culture, which we'll get into that kind of like later down the line towards the end of our episode and our time together today. But basically what we're going to do today is that we're going to talk about a list that I've put together that we've been using. Daniel and we've been using along with Savage when he's been part of the show, that we've been using together to evaluate the quarterback position. The differences, I think, is in how much weight we put behind each one. But I think that there is some level of consistency that I have on this list that we're about to dive into. But Daniel, talk about like how you've seen people evaluate the quarterback position. Or actually, let's pause on that. Let's wait on that till the very end. But let's just dive into kind of what this criteria is. So let's talk first about what makes a quarterback elite, what makes a quarterback really, really great. First, it's about the resume. It's about production. It's about winning. It's about team success. So about basically evaluating the quarterback's contribution to winning games and to also deep playoff run. That also includes like stats, statistical achievements, the raw numbers, efficiency ratings, and the records. And then also about personal achievements such as Pro Bowl. Really, to the lesser extent, I feel like Pro Bowls is now like pretty low on the list because you can make a Pro Bowl because 4 guys turn it down ahead of you. So I feel like Pro Bowls is not really that much, but like all pro selections is very, very important. And then MVPs. But Daniel, talk about like this section specifically when we're talking about the resume, production, winning. How much of a factor does that play into when you're evaluating the quarterback position?
I think for me, it's not necessarily, well, I'll say this. Playoff wins do matter. Getting your team into the postseason and then actually performing well in the postseason matters. Now, you don't have to win necessarily in the postseason because, as you know, football is a team sport. But as the quarterback of the team, you have a very big portion of the weight in terms of playoff success. And so if you are in the postseason, but your team is not really that good, but you're putting up good numbers and you're playing good football, that should factor in a little bit. There's going to be some quarterbacks off of our list, primarily because they don't win. Like they don't make the playoffs. They don't
Yeah.
play well in the playoffs when they're in it. And so to me, that kind of matters a whole bunch. And so it's kind of like we got to go by situation. And we may talk about some quarterbacks here today.
Well, let's
Just
let's just hop
yeah.
into it right now. I mean, because we're talking about this. What are the who are the quarterbacks that you're saying, they're not getting it done, they're not winning football games, and so it kind of gives you pause. It gives you cause to pause on
Mhm.
them kind of being within that top 10 quarterback threshold.
I mean, I think the one that's really easy for me is Justin Herbert. He's the first name that comes to my mind when I think about quarterbacks who don't get it done. And it's not like he hasn't had opportunities to get it. He just does not play well in the postseason. And so you have Chargers fans and all the Justin Herbert believers who are, man, he is top 3. He is top 5, but has nothing to show for it at all. And the excuses that they make for him, if you think a quarterback is top 3 or top 5, they're what we've been told. Now, David and I view this very differently. David doesn't like establishing his opinion based on the narrative that other people place on quarterbacks. I use it to my advantage because what I keep hearing about other quarterbacks who have lesser talent than some get all these expectations or things they need to do to prove that they're elite. But for guys that other people consider elite, does not matter to them. Justin Herbert being one of them. Um, he could have a great defense. He could have okay weapons, not elite weapons, but pretty okay weapons, and he can't get the job done. And it's everybody else's fault but Justin's. So for me, he's one of those quarterbacks when we talk about the resume, he has all the talent in the world. No one is saying he's not elite talent, but that talent hasn't resulted into wins or even a good playoff performance in his entire career. I think he's coming up on his 7th or 8th year, and he still
Mhm.
hasn't won a playoff game. For me, it's
His
hard to
season will
put
be it'll be 7th year. Yeah, yeah.
so for me, it's hard to put Justin Herbert in my top 10 list because he hasn't done anything. He's put up great stats in the first couple of years of his career, but what have you done that has been resulting in playoff wins? And it's been nothing. And so for that reason, I would leave him off.
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert's always the interesting. I think it's a good gauge on, well, it's him and Dak Prescott, like where you view those two of kind of like how I view you and how you evaluate quarterbacks and if I even value your opinion. Because I think you're right. Justin Herbert has all the talent in the world. And I feel like what most people's lists are, and we'll get into this here in a second, but it's talent plus wins with context with people that we like. So like Justin Herbert is a quarterback who has all the talent in the world and last 2 seasons has won 11 games in each of the 2 seasons. But he's 0-3 in the playoffs. In his last 2 playoff games, one against Houston, he threw 4 interceptions. Last year, only scored 3 points, albeit against the Patriots. He was sacked 6 times, and people will highlight he has no offensive line. They were banged up last year,
Mhm.
this, and that, which
All fair. All fair.
I think all fair, but the context doesn't go with every other quarterback. So it kind of to like what you were saying in your point
Mhm.
of like we will say, well, the offensive line wasn't very good, this and this and that. His receivers weren't great. Like we will make excuses for Justin Herbert, but for other quarterbacks, we will not do the same thing. Because we could say the same thing about CJ Stroud, who I think is another quarterback that you would probably look at on this list of like he hasn't looked great in the playoffs, really. Especially last season. I mean, he has a great defense, which has won them.
Yeah.
I think it got him to the divisional round within the last 2 years. But
Mhm.
if you look at his numbers, like his second year, after a great first year, albeit great
Mhm.
first year, he went 10-7 in 2024 with 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Last year, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he's won a playoff game every single
every year.
year.
Mhm.
But even last year, 2 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He threw
Mhm.
4 first half interceptions against the Patriots. I mean, again, that Patriots defense was really, really good. CJ
Mhm.
Stroud offensive line is not very, very good. Like, the weapons aren't there. Like, their offense just it wasn't great. But, like, you have to produce something, you know?
Mhm.
You have to produce something.
Yep.
And so I think that's where we kinda get into, like, this second thing of, like, contextual difficulty is assessing the degree of difficulty, talking
Yep.
about strength of schedule, quality of team construction and roster, and then
Mhm.
the total offensive reliance on the quarterback. Like, the Chargers, the last 2 seasons under Jim Harbaugh have kind of gone away from Justin Herbert being this elite thrower of the football, have been more of a running football team using Justin Herbert in the play action, and his numbers have gone down significantly. And so they're not relying on him to win games because when they were, they weren't winning games, right? I mean, when he was throwing for, 4,000 yards, 6-9, 9-8, 10-7, great year. But then when they shifted gears into running the 11-6, 11-5, and they were looking great in the playoffs. So, like, with Justin Herbert, it's just like they're not relying on him to win football games,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 seasons, his statistically, he hasn't looked good, like an elite quarterback that people are putting him on a pedestal for. Um, yeah, and so, I mean, like you were saying on contextual difficulty, I'm gonna talk about this guy a lot because he's my guy, and like, the context with this quarterback this year or the past 2 seasons has been drastically different than at the start of his career. Brock Purdy. Most of his team was injured this year. His best wide receiver was Juwan Jennings. The next, Demarcus Robinson. They went up against the number 2 defense in the National Football League, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Brock, admittedly, struggled in that first half of that playoff game, but he willed his team to win, led a fourth quarter comeback with a bare bones offense. No elite wide receiver. George Kittle was gone. I think George Kittle was gone in that game.
Mhm.
A bottom tier offensive line. He had Christian McCaffrey, who last year was a better receiver than
Yeah,
he
he was
was
a
a runner.
they did not run the ball well last
They
year.
did not run the ball well at all last year. They had their moments where they ran well, but put all that together, that team should not have been competitive as they were. And if for anyone who's saying, well, Mac Jones averaged 23 points per game, and when Brock came back in the lineup, they averaged 34. That's the difference between the two quarterbacks. So I don't want to hear anything about Mac Jones. Brock was not supposed to win a playoff game last year. And yet, every time
Mhm.
out of the 5 playoff wins that he has won, 4 of them game-winning drives. And the context last year says he shouldn't have done anything based on the injuries. And so it's stuff like that that I'm putting more weight in
Mhm.
because the team wasn't very good. Now, Kyle Shanahan coached his butt off last season, but Brock, at moments of that year, everyone was like, oh my gosh, this guy is a top 5 quarterback. Now, I'm not going to go that far and call him a top 5 quarterback, but the team had a drastic lift when he came back in the lineup from injury. And so, and yeah, so context is one of those weird things because we look at other I think that was the reason why I was more gung ho on Drake May being the MVP than Matthew Stafford. Because of the fact that based on Drake's context, new head coach, Josh McDaniels is there, obviously, but his best receiver was a good but not elite Stephon Diggs. Now, obviously, Booty is a really great receiver. Hunter Henry had his moments. Stevenson was running the ball. Ramondre Stevenson was running the ball along
And
with
Henderson was, yeah,
Trayvon
Trayvon
Henderson.
Henderson.
was coming alive, but no one really expected them to be very, very good.
I don't think anybody expected them to be a playoff team last year, much less being in the
No,
Super Bowl.
I think they expected them to take a step, but I don't think anybody expected them to be in the Super Bowl or for Drake May to look as good as he did last season. And so take his situation and then look at Matthew Stafford's situation. He has Sean McVay, who he's had for years at this point. They have
Mhm,
3 tight ends that are pretty good. You had not Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, 2 really great receivers, uh, Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, like, and a pretty good offensive line, I would say.
mhm.
Had everything and then had an MVP-like season. So those are the 2 things that I kinda struggle with, just being honest, when evaluating the quarterback position, because there's quarterbacks that are elite, but are also in an elite situation. And you have other guys who we would consider elite in a not so elite situation. And so how much weight are we carrying into those? That's the thing that I struggle with when doing lists like this.
I think another name that comes up, and I'm not, and this may sound like we're hating, but I think it's just because there's quarterbacks that come up when we talk about these things. There's also like good quarterbacks that get into elite situations, but then they show you why they shouldn't be considered elite. And the name for me like that is Jared Goff. Like
Mhm.
you look at him this past season, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 105.5 quarterback rating, 4,500 yards, 68% completion percentage. Like it's got Gibbs. I think Montgomery was still on the team. If
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
and then you have
Amon-Ra St. Brown,
all
Sam
all of their
Laporta.
weapons at the Jameson Williams. Like they have all of their guys. But the offensive line was a struggle. I'm not going to lie about that. But like you also saw times when Jared Goff like kind of proved why he isn't an elite quarterback is because of some of the late game clutch situations that he's in that he didn't complete last year. But he's a guy that is in a fantastic situation. You put other quarterbacks in that situation, they probably either do roughly the same as he or probably even better, which is kind of and people hate that the hypothetical conversation when you're talking about
Mhm.
and evaluating quarterbacks, but that's what context not allows you to do, but context just allows you to just keep things in perspective of, hey, this is a team game. How
Mhm.
much of the success is dependent upon you rather than what is around you? And I think in your case, and when you look at Brock Purdy and what he did this season, like what he was able to do, it's also important because if you look at Brock Purdy's numbers in the
Mhm.
postseason, they're not great,
They're not
right?
great. Definitely not great.
But in specific situations, like you were talking about the second half against
Mhm.
Philadelphia, who's also struggling offensively, like now you're seeing, okay, when the game calls for Brock to make a play, is he making the play?
Mhm.
With Brock Purdy has proven that he's done that and he's doing that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
In
Yeah,
situations
and
that are not ideal.
yeah, and it's not the first time he's done it either. You talk about the Green Bay Packer game, a couple years ago, didn't play really well the first half, came back storming in the second. Same thing about
Detroit.
the Lions in the NFC
Mhm,
Championship game. Same thing. Didn't play well in the first half, let it come back at the end. So it's like things like that, and that's probably why I'm not having Brock as like a top 5 quarterback or
mhm,
close to it, just because there are things about his game, and we'll talk about a lot of that a little bit later on too. The X
mhm.
factor, the talent, not there, but in terms of the intangibles, that's what for me places him in the top 10. I'm already giving that away a little bit. But like I agree with you. His stats don't show that he's a good playoff quarterback. But 4 game-winning drives out of 5 playoff wins, that's not bad either.
Yeah, but let's move on and talk about longevity and also the future outlook. So this has been one that has bit us in the butt a couple of times, specifically with 2 players, or maybe 3. So first is CJ Stroud, obviously coming off of his rookie season. I think for us, we did this. If I can remember, we put him like within the top 5. I think we put him at like number 4. or something like that. I could be
Yeah.
wrong. I have the list out somewhere. I can find it. But it was CJ Stroud. Then it was Jaden Daniels that we
Mhm.
did this with as well. Yeah, we put CJ Stroud at 4 that season after his rookie year. And then last year we put Jaden Daniels at 6. And then Jalen Hurts has also been a guy that we've done that with as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
because
And
I
that
think
I
we put
guess
him at like at 3 at one point, and then we put him outside of our top 10 after last year, and then we put him at 5 last year. So it's and what I mean by that is like we need you to put consecutive seasons together of you playing like a top 10 quarterback with the context, everything around it, who's struggling, who's doing this and that. Because like when you do these one-offs of, hey, a quarterback had a great, like for me this year, Drake May is going to have a hard time for me being in my top 10 because he's only done it for 1 year.
Mhm.
Granted, yes, he went to the Super Bowl mostly because of that great defense. Drake May did not have a great postseason this year,
Yeah, and I
but his
think for
defense was
me
elite.
yeah, I think for me, I think he will crop my top 10 list just because of the fact that he was in the MVP conversation. Now, am I gonna put him in the top 5? No, I'm not. But I think his season last year does earn him a spot in the top 10 because it was an MVP season, and I agree with you. I think his playoff performances are probably the reason why I'm not so gung ho on putting him higher on the list. And then also, like you said, we've been burned 3 times that I don't think we've been overzealous in putting them in there because, like, the fact that Jaden Daniels took the Washington Commanders to an NFC Championship game in his first season, and he looked good doing it. Last year was just an unfortunate he was banged up, the team wasn't very good. Um, I think time will tell, but I agree with you. I think we need to be careful before crowning Drake May as a top 5 quarterback, like, as a stable top 5 quarterback until we see him do it again this year.
Yeah, I'm still saying top 10 though, because I mean, look at the teams
Uh-huh.
that he beat. Miami, Carolina. Buffalo was a good win, but then the Saints, Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta.
Mhm.
Tampa Bay's a good win. The Jets, Cincinnati, the Giants. Baltimore, good win, but I think at this point, uh, Lamar was not back yet,
Uh-huh.
or he could have been. But then the Jets and the Miami. So maybe the teams that he's beaten that we would say, but Tampa Bay, I wouldn't even give him Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay kind of collapsed last season. So you look at Baltimore is a good win. Buffalo is a good win. But
Uh-huh.
then other than that, like who else? Carolina early in the season before they really turn things on. So like I'm looking at 2 good quality wins in a 14-3 season, you know? So that's why I'm still hesitant. I'm not saying that Drake May isn't going to be a great or elite quarterback. I'm just saying at the after this season, like
Yeah.
I
No,
can't put him in the top 10.
no.
I have to wait
You have to wait.
until what he does this season. Yeah, I think another interesting person to talk about is like Jalen Hurts as well. Of like
Yeah.
you're coming off of a Super Bowl MVP last year, but you have Saquon Barkley, but Saquon didn't do anything in that Super Bowl. And Jalen was fantastic in that game, like played really well. But you have a great offensive line at the time, and you have great wide receivers, and the threat of Saquon Barkley was also still there, and the defense played lights out as well. But that had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts' performance, right? But then you look at this past season of not having that same rushing attack with Saquon Barkley, defenses being more prepared for that, forcing Jalen Hurts to beat them, and they struggled all season long, even with that defense. Um, And then Jalen Hurts against the Niners did not look great. Neither did Saquon Barkley. I don't believe he played well in that game. Um, I
Let me
can't
see.
remember off the top of my
Yeah,
head
he
if he
had
played well.
106 on 26 carries.
So he
Um,
was okay. It was all right.
yeah, but it was nothing to like write home about. Like it didn't make a huge difference in that ball game.
Mhm. Yeah, and then you're looking at the offense coordinator at the time. It's so you're like, so I personally like Jalen Hurts. I think that he's a good to he can be great in moments and at
Mhm.
times.
In the postseason,
But
he's usually really great.
yeah, yeah. And so it's just like with any quarterback, even with like a Justin Herbert,
Mhm.
like you need the team to come around you and to play well for you to do kind of, but you have to show flashes of being able to do your thing. And Jalen Hurts has shown that in the postseason that he can play really, really well, even when the running game isn't working, right? If he still has the offensive line, his receivers, but also he can. But I think there are concerns about Jalen Hurts. Now we're talking about the future outlook, of specific quarterbacks. Jalen doesn't look like he's the same runner of the football that he was 2 seasons
No,
ago.
no, he's not.
So when
Yeah,
you
you
so
can
when you
definitely
take that
tell.
away, are you still can you still be that top 10 quarterback that we're asking you to be? You know, because part of his running ability was part of what made him a top 10 quarterback is that his ability to be able to pull the ball and run with it and to make plays. Like that just doesn't seem to be what he does anymore. So I think Jalen Hurts still makes it into my top 10 still
Wow.
because I,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of respect that I still have for him and his ability to end moments. Again, now we're getting into the clutch conversation, that X factor, the ability to have that late game poise, that comeback ability to perform under pressure. Like Jalen Hurts has shown that throughout his career to do that. Within the last 2 seasons, when we're looking at longevity, but then the future outlook of can he still run the ball the same way? All of those things kind of play a factor into Jalen Hurts for me to why he would probably be towards the bottom of my top 10 quarterback list, but
Mhm.
why he's still there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's not in my top 10 list just because of the fact that, I mean, they struggled to throw the football last year. Now, like going back to what we were talking about, the context of his season, Kevin Patullo should not have been an offensive coordinator. It was pretty evident that he was just not good at his job. And that's kind of like, I think the theme for Jalen. He's had a different OC or play caller, I think almost every year of his career. I think
Mhm,
even dating back since college. So to me, that has to weigh a little bit. And like you said, the fact that I think last year was probably the only time where you said, hey, we need to have it, and he wasn't able to deliver. But history has shown us that Jalen Hurts is a clutch player. So I think for me, saying what you said might have me looking to put him at the bottom of my top 10, much
mhm.
to Savage's
Now,
chagrin.
probably, but I will say though, there is something though, and this may fall under the category of false narratives, but I think we're talking about him now, so we can mention it. There
Mhm,
have been things said about him by sources
mhm,
about his culpability and the offensive play calling, you know,
mhm.
that he's not comfortable with doing specific things
Yeah.
that, or he's not comfortable doing different things. There are specific things that he likes to do and that he's comfortable. The word comfortable was
Mhm.
used in these reports. Are these false narratives or are these true? Like, I think that probably plays a lot of part into, the Jalen Hurts hate is because these reports are coming out and these things are being said about Jalen Hurts, but we've also seen Jalen Hurts produce. But are
Yeah.
those in systems that he's comfortable with? Is it because he still had that running ability that he doesn't seem to have now? So I think for Jalen Hurts, that's what kind of you're looking at and you're saying, man, is he still a top 10 quarterback?
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah. But then, like we said, the X factor, the things of late game poise, the ability to perform under pressure, like Now we're talking about, man, those are the elite of the elite quarterbacks that do it, like Patrick Mahomes historically has done it. The last 2 seasons, especially, I think, the year before last, like, the amount of fourth quarter comebacks that he had for Kansas City on their run, but then you're looking at the 2 Super Bowl losses that he has, he's under pressure, but he's trying to do everything that he can, but he was abysmal against the Eagles in the Super Bowl,
Mhm.
even with that bad offensive line. But I think Patrick Mahomes is kind of like the standard of, like, man, being clutch when you need him to be clutch in those late game moments. Um, but I mean, the X factor is important. Can you get it done when you need to get it done when the situation calls for it? I think Patrick's done it. Jalen's done it. Josh Allen has done it in moments and stretches. I think that was, and especially in his big MVP season 2 years ago against Kansas City in the regular
Mhm.
season. Like, that was the MVP moment for him when he like, when he
Carried.
rushes for that
Yeah.
touchdown and he literally carries them to victory in that game when you need to have it. I think you're probably looking at someone like Lamar 2 seasons ago, even. And I'll be positive about Lamar Jackson, even though I kind of, I've kind of gone back on him in a little bit because of his, you know, you have 2 turnovers in that game against the Bills, but then at the very end, you lead them down the field, have it for them to tie the game up, and Mark Andrews drops the football, right?
Yeah.
Josh Allen, even though we were talking about 2 years ago, last year, how many turnovers he had against Denver?
Yeah. And they were bad he had a 4 turnover
Now,
game.
yeah, now that one interception is arguable, you know, right?
Yeah.
But then you have the way that he rushes and he runs around, and then
The
he's
one
like,
he whips it back like 20 yards or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, like those aren't good. And you talk about even some games, may have been that it may have been the Eagles game, that Eagle game earlier that year where he has a wide open guy to clinch the victory, I think the 2-point conversion, and he just misses him completely.
Mm.
Like, the guy was open by, like, 10 yards, and he misses him.
Yeah.
So, it's like stuff like that. I mean, every quarterback's gonna have that, but there are some certain guys where you put the ball in their hands, they're gonna make something happen.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think all that is important.
Yeah, and so, like, we're now looking at, the resume, statistical achievements, personal achievements, win-loss record,
Well,
the context of the team that you're on, the offense coordinators that you have, then you have how long have you done this? Have you been an elite quarterback for? And also, do we see you continuing to do this as the rest of your career kind of goes on? Sorry, I almost dropped my cup as I'm talking. Um, but can you continue to do that? Are you going to be able to continue to do that? And then the X factor, can you when your name is called upon, do you have the capability, and have you shown that you've been able to show up and do those things? But Daniel, let's talk about the false narratives that kind of get equated into, evaluating quarterbacks of, hey, this for this reason they're not a top 10 quarterback. What are some of the narratives that you've heard that you're just like, man, that's really dumb. Like, why would this make it into your criteria?
I don't know if it would make it into my criteria. Uh, when I think about false narratives, I think false narratives about specific players that apply
We can
to
get into
one
that.
guy and don't apply to the other.
Mm,
Again, Brock Purdy. It's been said he needs to have elite weapons to do anything. The last 2 seasons that he's played without elite weapons, last year didn't make the playoffs, but he was still pretty good in terms of QBR, EPA, all that stuff. They got blown out the times that he didn't play the year before. Last season, no one really expected the Niners to do anything with the bunch of injuries that they had. Again, the narrative, he needs he needs the Avengers. Wins a playoff game against the number 2 ranked defense in the league. Does he still need elite weapons to win a playoff game? That's what I just want to know, because he didn't have it last year. Now, I've been consistent. David can back me up on this. I don't think Brock needs elite weapons. I think he needs good weapons. I think he needs players who can help in terms of like they know what they're going to be doing. They're not going to be the weak link on the team. He doesn't need the best. Now another guy who I think we don't apply to this, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has had the two best wide receiver tandem since he's entered the league. He's never played an NFL season. I think his rookie year without Jamar Chase, right? I think that's right.
Yeah.
And then he got hurt in the middle of the season. They weren't going to go to the playoffs anyway. Since then, he's had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Hasn't been to the playoffs since 2023. And yet people don't ask the question, well, does he need the Avengers? Does he need all this stuff? He's had two elite wide receivers, still cannot get it done since 2023. That's the only thing that frustrates me is the fact that when we put expectations that we should have for quarterbacks like Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like same thing. Nick Wright literally last year was like, Patrick needs wide receivers. It's like, bro, is he Patrick Mahomes or not? The offensive line wasn't good in the Super Bowl. Like, were any of Brock's offensive line good? They had Trent Williams that elevates that offensive line quite a bit. Same thing with Joe Burrow. Man, they win that Super Bowl if he has a better offensive line. Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl if they just block, what's his name? Jones.
Snead? Or
No,
yeah,
Joe.
Chris Jones. Yeah.
Chris Jones. They at least follow their assignment and get in his way. Potentially they win the Super Bowl. So but it's like, Brock couldn't get it done. But Joe Burrow, he didn't have an offensive line. It's so double standards that to me are frustrating because we have high expectations for guys who aren't elite and we know aren't elite, but we make excuses for the guys who are supposedly elite. To me, this is a false narrative, and David will be really happy about this. We got to stop the slander on Dak Prescott. We got to stop. Got to stop. Is he the greatest playoff performer in the world? No. Is he Lamar Jackson in the postseason? He is not. More often than not, we can point to maybe one or two instances in Dak's entire playoff career where he hasn't played well. The other times, I say this as a Cowboys fan, a pessimistic Cowboys fan, but a Cowboys fan nonetheless. Our defenses in the playoffs have been terrible. They've been terrible. Even with a transcendent defensive player like Michael Parsons, they've been bad. So for that reason, and the fact that anytime he's been a part of the offense, that is a top 10 or top 3 offense in the National Football League, I need the Dak Prescott slander to stop. He is not the best quarterback in the league. He's also not mid and the worst quarterback in the league, like some people will try to tell you. So so I probably went really long on that, but to me, those are the 2 to 3 things that again, like you said earlier, if those are your opinion, I can't really talk to you about quarterbacks. Just can't.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to, I think to the Brock Purdy hate, really, for me, I mean, you're on 49ers Twitter more than I am, but for me, that narrative did start because Niners fans were really pushing Brock Purdy hard the year that they were going to the Super Bowl. You know, they're saying Brock Purdy is better than all of these quarterbacks because he's been this far in the postseason. Like if he wouldn't have gotten hurt in his rookie year, we would have been to the Super Bowl, this and this and that. Maybe they didn't say that, but you know, his first two seasons, you make it the first year NFC Championship game, second year Super Bowl. And so you're having all these 49er fans talking about Brock Purdy is better than your quarterback and he's an elite guy, this and this and that. And everyone's pointing to, well, at that point you have You have a great running game, and then you get CMC the second season, or maybe it was the first year.
Yeah, he seems he was
Yeah, he
there
was there.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have CMC, Brandon Ayuk when he was still good, Debo Samuel when he was still good, George Kittle when he was still good. You have Kyle Juszczyk still on the team. The defense, all world, all good, and then you have Kyle Shanahan as your play caller. So you're looking at all of these things, and then Brock Purdy, and then you're having 49er fans saying Brock Purdy's elite and he's better than your guy, right? And so clearly that is going to continue to kind of carry over when Niner fans continue to push that narrative. I think it's
Mhm.
the same thing with like Eagles fans with Jalen Hurts of like Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts is better than your guy because he's already got a ring and he's already got an MVP. And it's like, well, the year that you guys have been winning, you have a solid running game. You have great wide receivers, a great offensive line, an all elite defense, like all of these things that Jalen Hurts has. And you're saying, well, he's elite and he's better than your quarterback. Well, you're going to get a lot of pushback from that, and that's going to continue to be the narrative for him.
Mhm.
Joe Burrow, in particular, I'm a fan of Joe Burrow. I think he's an
Mhm.
elite quarterback because he
Yeah,
can
so do
lead
I.
offenses extremely well, right? And
Mhm.
I don't knock him for not making it to the postseason, other than the fact that he's been hurt, right? And he's been inconsistent about staying healthy. Because even last year, how many games did he miss last year?
Here's the thing about that though. When he came back from injury, there was a lot of chatter. The Bengals are going to go on a run. They're going to go on the run. They're going to make the postseason. Joe Burrow is back. Let's do the thing. Let's see if I can find the schedule from last season just to highlight what we're talking about. So I
But he only
think
played 8 games last year.
yeah, he came back against Buffalo or against Baltimore. So at that point, 1, 2, 3. They had won 3 games up until that point. Had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they were 3-8. And so again, loses a shootout to Buffalo, right? I can't knock him for that. Dude has 0 points against Baltimore the second time.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
Now they beat Miami, they beat Arizona, and then lose to, so again,
They probably I don't
I
know
think
if he played.
I think the biggest knock on Joe is the fact that he can't stay healthy.
I think
That
yeah,
that's
and
that's
so
the
for
biggest knock that you can point to.
I think
Um,
so too.
so I think for you, me, and Savage, religiously, we've had him in the top 3, top 4 of our QB list every year. This year, spoiler alert, he will not be in the top 5 for me, and it's purely just because of the fact that he cannot stay healthy.
Yeah,
That's the only reason why he's
I
not
agree.
up there a bit more. I think my frustration with Joe is the fact that, bro, and I think it's more of the Brock Purdy chip on my shoulder more than anything.
Brother
He's
loves
not
Brock Purdy.
Brock is not allowed to have elite talent. He's not allowed, but Joe Burrow, it's okay. And no one gets to ask the question, well, what if he didn't have Jamar Chase? And what if he didn't have T. Higgins? Would he still be elite at that point? Because we've never seen it. But it's not a question I'm just asking for consistency from everyone around. If Brock's not allowed to have elite talent, then nobody should be allowed either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that just goes back to the thing of like you're saying I'm saying I'm not holding that standard with anybody. I'm having my own
Mhm.
standard of how I view
Correct.
quarterbacks. And you're
Correct.
like, well,
I need to adapt more.
let's put this
I need
standard to
to
the test.
I need to adapt more to what you're doing just for my
Yeah,
sanity and for my happiness long term.
yeah, because like for me, like I think also Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback, right?
Mhm.
But I think he is lower on the list because even with all of that, he still has like that gunslinger
Yeah,
mentality that
yeah.
gets him into trouble sometimes.
And
Um,
I think if he had the arm talent for it, then it'd be a lot easier,
right.
and he'd get away with
He
it.
could get away with it. Yeah.
Like, I think you and me are in agreement. Brock is always gonna be around the 8 to 12 range.
Yeah.
That's just who Brock is. He's not an elite quarterback. I think he is in that second tier. I do think that in moments where you need him to elevate his play, he is very capable of doing so. Very
Yeah.
capable of doing so. And with a good roster, can win playoff games and potentially win a Super Bowl. That remains to be seen yet, but um, I think you and I have always been in lockstep on who Brock is, and his physical limitations is the reason why he will always be towards the low end of our top 10 list. But in years where he plays really well, he will be in the top 10.
Yeah, I also think there is a conversation. I kind of continue to respond to like what your points at. You brought up Dak Prescott.
Mhm.
I want to be specific on that because some people will probably like be like, well, he's 2-5 in the playoffs, and he was terrible
Mhm.
against the Packers, and he
Sure.
was terrible against the Niners, and those are two games that they'll bring up, which is absolutely
Mhm.
fair. Those are two games that he's played bad in, right? But like we've highlighted, all quarterbacks in the NFL have played terrible in specific games, right? I think the only
Mhm.
one that I would probably say is Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl with no offensive line and then his weapons not showing up, especially against Tampa Bay. Mahomes was doing everything he can to try and win that game and got no help from the
Mhm.
offense. But like with Dak, or like you brought up Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott. Personally, I think that Dak Prescott's been better than Lamar Jackson in the postseason. I just think he has. I think the only argument you can say is probably the Buffalo game again for Lamar. I think that's probably what's saving Lamar is that game against Buffalo. But he turned the ball over 2 times
Mhm.
in the first half.
Yeah.
And the thing with Dak Prescott is that when he plays terrible in the first half, it doesn't matter what he does in the second half because it's stat padding, right?
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
only stat padding because the defense was still so terrible. The defense was so bad. Like the Packers game was a lost cause from the jump.
Mhm.
The only reason why the Cowboys got kind of close in that game was because the Packers kind of stopped trying until they needed another score to just make it a little bit more comfortable. But they took their foot off the gas in that game against the
Yeah.
defense. That shouldn't have been a game. The offense was not going to be able to keep up with the Packers in that game, regardless, even if Dak played super phenomenal. Right. And then even
Mhm.
last year, looking at the way he, like you said, he had a top 3 offense last season. Javonte Williams, godsend.
Mhm.
George Pickens, phenomenal. Paired with CeeDee Lamb, who I say had an off year last year. Jake Ferguson, not what he was, you know, before the injury.
Mhm.
And then your offensive line was I think that they were pretty good last year.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
I think Adams did a phenomenal job of really, but they were also inconsistent because they're young. But Dak was phenomenal. He was
Mhm.
amazing. And if the defense would have been 20th in the NFL, Cowboys probably make the postseason. Dak probably has an MVP. And if he does have the MVP, that should be his second because he should have won in 2023
Mhm.
over Lamar, right?
Yep.
So like Dak for sure, I think does get a bad rap. But I again, it's par for the course of being a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. You're gonna get hated on. Dak's gonna be blamed for the 30 years that Jerry Jones has not brought an NFC championship appearance to this organization. That's just how it is with Dak Prescott. But I made peace with it a long time ago. I'm like, if you're saying Dak is mid or Dak isn't good, or you're blaming it's all Dak's the only reason why the Cowboys or he should be good enough to overcome all these things. I think we've seen so far in the NFL that that's not the case anymore.
Mhm.
Teams are too good to put on one player to overcome, even at the quarterback position. I don't care how much money they're making.
Mhm.
Teams are too good for a quarterback to overcome all of a team's deficiencies.
Mhm. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes last year. He wasn't able to overcome the deficiencies of that team.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow had an MVP-like season. They missed the
2 years
playoffs.
ago. Yeah.
So again, if we're gonna hold Dak Prescott to that standard, by people's own how they evaluate, Patrick Mahomes isn't considered elite anymore. based on how they view it. Because you make all this money, if you are making whatever it is, you
You're
should
a top
always
paid
have
quarterback.
you should always have your team in the playoffs. Well, the two guys that you guys considered super elite, that no one can touch them, they both missed the playoffs. And for people who are like, well, Mahomes got hurt, they were going to get eliminated after that game. Even if he was healthy, they were eliminated. So do with that what you will. Like David said, those days where one player can carry a football team to the ultimate goal is shrinking year by year. It just is. And the last 2 seasons proved it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, yeah, for sure. And so I think when you're evaluating the quarterback position, context matters, and then being consistent across the board matters. You can't have a standard and a set of rules for the guys that you don't like, but then don't hold them to that same standard for the guys that you do like. I mean, you could, but no one's going to take your opinion seriously. You'll just be in the comment sections of TikToks and X looking like a fool. And I'm okay with that.
And just for clarification, Mahomes will be very high on on my list.
I still think he's the best quarterback in the league, personally.
So do I.
No one, like, it's kind of like in the NBA, like Jokic was still considered the best in the world. And then he got knocked out of the playoffs. So it's just like, okay, well, who's up next? Who's going to take his crown? SGA performs terribly in the postseason. Well, SGA first. It was like SGA.
Yeah.
Then Wemby. Awful finals. Awful finals. So it's just like, okay, well, no one took the crown. Patrick Mahomes misses the playoffs and is out injured this season. Okay, who's going to take the crown? Josh Allen, 4 turnovers. Lamar Jackson, out of the playoffs. Joe Burrow, out of the playoffs. Jalen Hurts plays terribly.
I mean, the two quarterbacks.
Drake May looks awful, right? And Sam Darnold
wins the Super Bowl.
Does enough to win, right? But only does. Kenneth Walker was fantastic. The defense was great.
And Sam admitted it. He was like, I think and
I love Sam Darnold.
This is why I love Sam Darnold. He literally goes on there and he's just like, yeah, the thing that makes me mad is that I hate winning when I play terrible. Or when he said I didn't play to what I thought I could play.
But so, hey, shout out to Seattle fans though. They won the Super Bowl the whole night, and then they're not going in and saying Sam Darnold's the best quarterback in the league or a top 5 quarterback. They're just like, we love Sam.
We'll take him.
As far as I've seen,
we'll take him.
Sam. Yeah, we'll take him. Yeah. He won us the Super Bowl. Yeah. We're good. You know. So shout out to Seattle fans for keeping it real, unless there's stuff we don't know about. But yeah. But that's going to do it for us here on Twin Reads. Let us know in the comments what you think about our list. Did we rant too long about specific players? But are we consistent?
I probably did.
Brock Purdy love, man. It goes deep.
It does go deep. He's got wabi sabi.
Wabi sabi. Great.
He's got wabi sabi.
Yeah. So next time we come with an episode, it might be Double Take a Sports Podcast because we might get Savage back on to go through the top 10 quarterbacks list. If not, we'll come back with another episode and do a top 10 list, kind of see where we're at. As we prepare for the NFL season that is coming soon. Training camp is just 1 month away. So when we get to that point, we're going to break down each division of each conference. And we're going to get back on it as the NFL season rolls up in September. But until next time, God bless.